Great experiences build great leaders. Great leaders build great teams. This is Building Great Sales Teams.
All right, guys, welcome back to the Building Great Sales Teams podcast. I've got my man, Kevin Caballaro, here today. He's a husband and father of 3. He's the owner of Caballaro Insurance Agency, and they do insurance, life, and health. They also cover home, auto, and commercial. He's been in the industry for 16 years now and is currently working on an exit from his captive book of business. Kevin, welcome to the show, brother.
Hey, Doug. Thanks for having me.
Awesome, man. So you got a wife, you got 3 boys, you got a beautiful family.
Thank you.
What does your schedule look like? How are you juggling being a husband, a father, and an entrepreneur?
I gotta give props to my partner. Rachel does a lot in terms of making sure the boys are taken care of. We try to work together in terms of managing our schedules. Mm-hmm. Like, for example, this morning I dropped them off, the oldest 2 at the Vacation Bible School for summer. But during the summertime, she's like the captain of the house, and I'm just kind of like try to be best supporting actor, just whatever's needed, whether it's dropping off, picking up, one-off type things at the grocery store or whatever. But she's kind of who keeps it all together.
Mm-hmm. Do you find yourself, or do you have that ability once you walk through those doors to kind of turn off business, turn off the day, and kind of focus on the family?
It is a work in progress, Doug. I will say that sometimes it's hard to have a hard cutoff. And my wife kind of nudges me and reminds me when I'm in the middle of an email and I'm trying to knock a few things out just so my to-do list for the next day isn't too heavy. Yeah. But it's important that she kind of does nudge me, because I do have a tendency of getting that hyper focus and really want to knock out that task. And but it is important, very important, to unplug. And also the comments from the kids. My oldest, they're about to be 9 and 6, and they'll say things like, "Oh, Bobby's always on his phone," and I don't want them to think of the memories of childhood that have a dad that wasn't able to unplug.
Yeah, no, that makes a ton of sense. And it's like everything else. Even when you get to a good space in terms of that control and that focus and that being present, like, it's a daily challenge.
Definitely.
And that's what I was trying to tell people, especially being in the spaces that we're in, seeing these amazing people speak from stage all the time, or, being part of these masterminds. What I always try to tell people is like, hey, you see him on stage and, he's reached this point because of these disciplines that he or she has executed, but you got to understand that they struggle with it daily too. You know what I mean? It's just a different level of struggle. They have different things that they put in place to avoid that, like putting the phone on the nightstand, or,
sure,
whatever the case is, or putting it in focus mode. And so we all have those things in our life that, like, hey, we're doing a little bit better than some other people at, and then other ones that it's like really struggling with,
Definitely.
And so I think that's what people don't realize is, our vices and our bad habits are a constant battle, right?
Well, it's like, I think number 1 is awareness. Number 2 is also, what are we doing to mitigate against that, and incorporating those habits into our daily workflow. One of the biggest things on being able to unplug for me has been incorporating the services of a virtual assistant. That's fundamental in being able to unplug, because I know there's a second pair of eyes that has access to my inbox, that has access to my social media, that can handle some of the, I would say, less complex tasks that do come into an insurance agent's world.
Yeah, no, that makes a ton of sense. It's gotten to the point now where I don't even have an executive assistant anymore. Not really. I have she probably does 5 hours a week for me, simple stuff. But my other 3 VAs are all operational now. They've kind of grown into their positions, and they're key players now to that point, And so the only things that I handle are the things that require my experience.
Correct.
You know what I mean? That require my voice on them. So no, that's definitely a huge hack that I think helps us a lot in terms of disconnecting. 100%.
Absolutely.
Okay, I'm always curious about these positions like yours in general. when someone says they're a realtor, there is so much like between, somebody that's making 10 grand a year being a realtor and somebody that's making millions. And I would imagine it's the same thing in insurance, and sometimes it's not always because they're just starting out. It's just because they're not executing the position
Correct.
properly. You know what I mean?
Yes.
So these are extremely competitive positions in my mind, because the barrier of entry is often, some licensing, some testing, and not to say it's not difficult, but it's not 4 years of college, right?
Correct. I would say, I would venture to say, since you didn't, the barrier to entry into the insurance space is relatively low.
Yeah. And I went when I was like 20 years old. I did the insurance. I got my license. I never executed on it. I was a marketing manager for a real estate company. It was like, oh, I'm gonna save myself commission on my first house. You know what I'm saying? That was about the gist of it.
Gotcha.
But how are you in that sea of insurance agents? You know what I'm saying? Differentiating yourself right now.
It's true, because I mean, in the sea of insurance agents, it is somewhat a very crowded space.
Mm-hmm.
And the only way that I can bring some distinction, a separation of value, unique value proposition, however you want to phrase it, is by trying to be a trusted advisor, not just someone that just sells cheap insurance, because obviously there's a whole spectrum of offerings, right? Mm-hmm. What we try to do is be a one-stop shop for families and businesses, mm-hmm. that we can handle multiple lines of business, where the business owner or the decision maker of that household only has to pick up the phone and call one agency. We're trying to be positioned to be able to kind of almost be like your insurance concierge.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Whether it be employee benefits for a business, all the way down to a simple renter's policy for a college age daughter. Mm-hmm. Anything in between then is being able to be addressed and handled at our agency's level.
No, I love that, because it creates more quality per client in my mind. I've always appreciated, the insurance agent that I had before, for 10 plus years, mm-hmm. and it wasn't even that he or she was that great. It was just like, I had one person to go to for all my insurance stuff. Mm-hmm. I would email them. They would knock it out. They had my card on file, all Perfect. That good stuff. And it just made it so much easier.
And that's what we try to do. They just made it so much easier. Mm-hmm. Now, Doug, if all of a sudden you're faced with a rate increase, mm-hmm. that rate increase would need to be substantial for you to even consider breaking away from that particular service provider, because of the ease that they introduce into your life. Mm-hmm. And that's what we try to do with our clients, as our service, is the way that we can kind of make the client feel like, oh, Kevin and Jessica just make my life easier.
Yeah. Well, and I think you targeting business owners is the right play, because we want things to be easy. Mm-hmm. Our business is hard enough.
Oh, exactly.
Getting leads, getting customers, converting them, servicing them. It's hard enough. And you as a business owner yourself can appreciate that. So Definitely. It's massive when you can just send an email or shoot a text and it's taken care of.
Exactly.
You don't have to reapply. You don't have to. Mm-hmm. And that's the other thing too. You're 100% right. Like, if my insurance costs increase 5% year over year across the board, you know what I mean? I'm not going to change my insurance agent over that.
You're going to shrug it off. Exactly.
Yeah. It's going to be like, hey, it's just cost of living increase, inflation, all that good stuff,
Correct.
And so, okay. How did that, I guess, evolve into, you started out as an individual agent, obviously, and then you evolved into an agency owner, and
Correct.
Now you're looking at a possible exit. Can
Mm-hmm.
you walk us through that evolution and kind of some of the key things that had to happen for you to progress?
Sure. Well, as you mentioned, I started in just selling life insurance and health insurance many years ago. And my careers took me where I was breaking apart from a Fortune 100 life insurance company, where I was working hand in hand with other agency owners like myself, that they sell home and auto insurance, but they tend to have an Achilles heel in being able to have the same level of conversations that they have with the home and auto client,
That's fair.
it's different than having a life and financial discussion. So that was the service that I provided for multiple agency owners for another
Mhm.
big property and casualty company. And so that was my avenue through where I kind of saw the other end of the business model of, oh, I'm facilitating this particular service, right?
Right.
But then I thought, man, these guys have a great quality of life. They've got an actual storefront. They've got staff. They can
Mhm.
unplug. I see them, I follow them on Facebook, Instagram.
Why is that? Is it just better margins on that side of the business?
There is a way that some of the repetitive tasks can be assigned and delegated
Gotcha.
to staff people that they can handle the service demands of an auto and home policy. But
That
once
makes
you have
sense. You
enough
need more
volume,
expertise. Yeah.
exactly, then essentially what I want you to think about it, just because all the other business owners that are watching this, just easy math, right? For every $1 million of premium that an agency manages,
Mhm.
equated to about $100,000 of revenue,
Right.
roughly. So think about a business owner that's been doing this for many years and they've amassed maybe $4 million of premium, just to kind of throw a number out. Now
Mhm.
they've got a business that's generating roughly $400,000 a year. With that $400,000 a year, depending on how that revenue is allocated in your business, the majority of it being payroll,
Mhm.
then you've got lease, marketing. The margins are pretty good on a business that has those type of
Right.
economics.
No, that makes sense. It makes a ton of sense. So basically, you started utilizing the other side of the business, which was home and auto, and that's kind of how you evolved into having a book of business that was sellable in a sense because it didn't require
Correct.
your expertise.
Correct. It was a unique opportunity that with my current company where it allowed me the opportunity to step in and take over a book of business,
Mhm.
and that provided me the cash flow to be able to have the retail storefront, to have staff, allocate
Mhm.
money for marketing dollars, softwares, licenses and stuff like that.
Mhm.
So it's going from a solopreneur type of situation
Yeah.
into an owner operator type of undertaking.
Yeah, we talked about, I want to say like 6 months ago when I invited you on the podcast,
Mhm.
and you were talking about now that I've hired the VA and I have the in-house person, like you guys were doing pretty well now that you were able to expand some of those tasks.
Oh yeah, it's that just freaked me up so much because
Mhm.
like now I went from having a conversation with another member of our mastermind Apex
Mhm.
where I was like, you should try it even on a part-time basis. Think of your repetitive tasks that you have and start building like a video library of what it would take to for someone else to come in that doesn't
Yeah.
know what you know, and you break it down like standard operating procedures but in a video format. So I started doing that and incorporating that into the virtual assistant that I hired, and now I can't go back, Doug. Like if things don't work out with my current VA, I need to have
Spoiled
someone
now.
else.
Yeah. No,
You
it
know,
makes a ton of sense.
definitely.
Okay, so let's talk about your exit a little bit.
Okay.
Does that mean that you're exiting insurance altogether?
No, great question. And to
Yeah.
distinguish, it's going from a captive company, and captive,
Uh-huh.
just as the audience means, think of like State Farm, Allstate,
Mhm.
Farmers. Those are captive companies where the agent only has access to be able to sell those particular companies.
Mhm.
Going from the captive model to the independent model is the current step that we're in. So with Farmers, the current company I represent, the only way to exit there is by selling my book of business to another farmers agent that wants to grow a little
Okay.
bit faster than by organic growth. They want to just acquire another book of business, or someone that wants to come in to become a farmers agent, which is the
Mhm.
case with me.
S- Oh, okay, I see. So what is this going to allow you to do now? How does
Uh,
this, I
the
guess,
i- the idea behind it is I'll be able to have a portfolio of multiple carriers that I'll be
Mhm.
able to offer my clients.
Okay.
So going back to the value proposition we discussed earlier in terms of being able to be that kind of concierge level service,
Yeah.
where sometimes, unfortunately, I've been stuck between a rock and a hard place where, say, Doug, say we have like substantial rate increases, and it's
Hmm.
really got you looking at the finances, and you love our agency, love our service, but it's outside of what
Yeah.
maybe other competitors are offering you. Now I'll be able to hopefully position where I have in that portfolio of companies alternative options for you.
Hmm.
So you're still doing business with me, and I'll just be changing the company that we write the insurance on.
Okay. All right. I want to shift gears here a
Sure.
little bit into, the mastermind world that we're in. I think there's so many pitfalls in it, and I'm not gonna say a victim. Like I fell for a lot of it, you know what I mean? In the sense
Yeah.
that when I joined, I wanted to do all the things, right?
Yeah.
And I spent way too much money in my first year on all the events, the education, the mastermind itself, right?
Yeah.
And so, kind of how have you navigated that, and how do you battle that FOMO? You know what I mean? That happens all the time. Like once we connect, it's like, oh dang, Kevin's at that quarterly event, or he's at this other mastermind. And it's like, hey, maybe I should be a part of that.
Yeah.
The problem is there's such a strong social aspect to these things
Huge.
that it's very hard to, even though like what they're going to talk about, you have a good knowledge
Sure.
base of what they typically talk about at these events. You still want to go just to hang out with your friends. You know what I mean?
It's true. I mean, sometimes even in the last event we that was held, although some of the speakers were fantastic,
Yeah.
the biggest, I think, takeaways in terms of experience, like, wow, what was your, like when I was explaining to my wife why I take 2 or 3 days away from the family to go to this mastermind event,
Yeah.
she's like, wow, it sounds like to me like you're getting a lot more positive experiences from the one-on-ones with
Hmm.
the other Apex members, like
Yeah.
over a beer, over a cigar, or what
Yeah.
have you, or just sharing a meal, breaking bread,
Hmm.
talking about your struggles, obstacles, what you're overcoming, your career evolution. And in that, I feel like it, for me, it fuels my, it refills my tank rather. When I come
Yeah.
back, I get recharged with so many ideas.
Sometimes that's all it is.
Yeah,
Sometimes you just need to be around your people. And by your people, I mean other business owners
exactly.
or other, advantage, what's the word? Ambitious,
Oh yeah,
ambitious men and women.
it's true. Like Apex has been able to curate essentially this. It's hard to kind of really distinguish what
Mhm.
makes the Apex crew what we are, but I mean, you just did it. I mean, ambitious,
Mhm.
hungry, um, business owners seeking the better version, most elite version of themselves,
Mhm.
big on personal development, readers, focusing on fitness, the family. Like, I think it's great. I love that.
Do you have any plans yourself? Because it happens. I'm in that space now where I'm constantly putting content out that has to do with family, entrepreneurship, sales teams, and I don't consider myself an influencer because I have a very deep following. I would say to where
Mhm.
it's like it's not large. It's more they are people I've met in person. You know what I'm
Yeah.
saying? And do you have any plans to like write the book or to pursue that side of things? Do you want to be a figure for entrepreneurs someday?
I think sometimes going back to kind of like the evolution of even being in that mastermind, first you start off where there's a lot of what's it called? Where you don't feel worthy. I know it's got a
Yeah, yeah,
phrase for it.
imposter syndrome. Yeah,
Imposter syndrome. Thank you, Doug.
yeah.
I've dealt a lot with that, and sometimes when I feel, because I still am an ambitious guy and I want to
Mhm.
achieve things, and knock out goals, and writing a book is definitely on my one of those things too. Or
Mhm.
like you did, having a podcast and interviewing guests.
Yeah.
Um, I think it's sometimes I fight like a mental battle of you're not worthy, or you, what what unique value could you bring?
Yeah.
Everything that needs to be said has already been said by someone better than you or more qualified than you.
Uh,
So I have a bad maybe like a inner self-talk.
Mhm.
And that's one of those things that I'm kind of dealing with. Even sometimes when I'm writing content on what to talk about,
Yeah.
I'll write and then sometimes I'll delete it, or I'll second guess myself. So
Yeah.
it's not perfect, and it's something that I am working through. But it's that fighting that ambitious person inside of me, also
Okay.
with the crap that
Yeah.
goes in there.
Absolutely. No, especially when I first started out, and I started in executives,
Mhm.
and I did not belong there in terms of net worth
You know?
at all, at all. And so,
Well, kudos to you for putting yourself in a room.
yeah,
You know,
and don't get me wrong, I've grown a ton in the last couple of years, and it's been something else, right? But no, I completely understand what you're saying.
yeah,
And so, like, you go from that room, and then you go to your Facebook page, and you're like, "Hey, I'm gonna post something." It's like, dude, what we were just talking about in that room, what these guys are talking about, like, that's what these people need to hear, not what I have to say. You know
yeah,
what I'm saying? And so, what happened though is I committed to 2 times a day, right? And the podcast helps with that,
yeah.
right? So we do 3 episodes a week, so that's 3 posts a day right there,
Perfect.
or 3 posts a week. I'm sorry. Um, and then now that I'm consulting, I have clips from the consulting that helps too. But I have to write 5 to 7 long form posts a week. And now it's at the point where I just like write it, post it, and forget it. And I
Hmm.
come back a couple hours later, and sometimes it's 50 likes and 10 comments, and sometimes it's like 4 likes.
Yeah,
You know what I mean?
yeah.
I
And then
just
one of them, and the 4 likes is your mom and your wife.
well, it's more my wife and like, oh, my VA team, because they
Yeah,
all have to go in there. It's part of the job.
there you go. So they're fulfilling their job requirement. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
Oh, and there's times where I pour my heart out into a post and it just
Uh-huh.
gets no engagement, and then I'll have like something cute my son did, and it's like,
Yeah.
so it's
No,
like,
it's
but I mean, I also commend you for having the consistency and the
mhm.
daily goal. It's a non-negotiable for you.
Yeah.
So that's commendable.
No, I appreciate it. But that's the thing too. It's like people don't get onto social media to learn.
Hmm.
Let's be honest. Like we do, me and you do,
Sure.
because we're conditioned,
Yes.
from being in the rooms that we're in, right?
Hmm.
But most people don't get on social media to learn. They get on social media to be entertained,
Entertained,
right?
exactly.
And a family picture is entertainment. Hey, Kevin's doing well. He's got
Mhm.
beautiful kids, beautiful wife, right?
Yeah.
And then move on to the next one, right? Um, and we do the way that we're taught to write these things.
Yeah.
It's not appealing to the average person, you know. And so, but what you're doing by doing that is not just bringing attention to yourself as an entrepreneur and as an insurance agency owner.
Hmm.
You're filtering your social media,
Yeah.
so the people that don't appreciate it won't come back, you know what
Right.
I'm saying? And just algorithm based. It's not that they're
Exactly.
physically saying, hey, I don't want to see Kevin's stuff anymore. It's just the algorithm's not going to show it to them,
Right.
you know? And so I went through a period of, like, I couldn't get over 10 likes,
Really.
you know what I'm saying? Yeah, because it went down,
Uh-huh.
because now my posts weren't all, you know, the basic stuff, which is I'm at this place, let me take a
Hmm.
picture, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Family, sports. It wasn't all that anymore, so I went through this filtering process for a while, and
Hmm.
then it got better and better over time. But it's been 2 years now. It's been like, literally like 1% every month, I would say,
Wow.
you know, and it had, and that's the thing too, is my subject is very niche,
Yes.
so I can
So
imagine.
naturally, it's not going to have the same level of engagement, right?
Yeah, because you're probably not building a sales team anytime soon. You know what I mean? Maybe once you get your brokerage going,
Sure.
but it's like it creates a micro interest, I should say.
Yes.
The thing with the podcast, same situation, but the people that do follow me are interested in that specific thing,
Yeah.
and that do see me on there and come up and everything. And then when you mix in the entertainment piece, which is the family, the
Sure.
dad lessons,
Oh
the
yeah.
entrepreneur lessons, you know what I'm saying? Then the engagement pops back up and everything. And
Definitely.
so, you're not boring them to death with your niche. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. Because I mean, no one wants. I mean, I don't know. I think sometimes we look as business owners like I think what you do is like fascinating.
Mm-hmm.
And then the other day I was talking with another realtor, and he was asking me so many questions about insurance. I was like, people care about this stuff. Like I think insurance is like so. It can be sometimes a very boring and dry topic.
Yeah.
But then when I talk about like something I uncovered or some sort of resolution to a problem, he was like captivated. And I was like, I go, how come you don't post stuff about, your realtor stuff? Like, I was like, tell me about the last house you sold. I was $400,000. We went on this listing. It's like, were there a lot of challenges? He's like, oh yeah, this and this and that. And I was like, that's fascinating. How come you don't talk about it? It's like, I don't know. I just think it's boring. But it's like we disqualify ourselves. So we, in that exchange that happened at the last event, we kind of hyped each other up. Like let's be more committed to sharing our struggles, talking about our client stories, and I think it'll just serve us better.
And it happens all the time. Like I'll post at the wrong time, or I'll do a video on Facebook. Like in my it won't be a reel. For whatever reason, Facebook doesn't like that.
Yeah.
And I'll get like 4 likes and 1 comment, right?
Yeah.
But then I'll get someone direct messaging me like, hey, this is exactly what I need. And it's like all of a sudden it's like, well, who cares how many people comment and like it? I just got a lead.
Exactly.
So 1 lead per post, I'm in heaven. You know what I'm saying? Like that's the game, right?
That's it.
And so I think that perspective helps on that. All right, brother. Last 2 questions.
Okay.
What does legacy mean to you, and what legacy do you want to leave behind?
What does legacy mean to me? I think it's the way my kids will talk about me after I'm gone. I think that, your impact on the next generation. How will my kids and my kids' generation, how will I be remembered? I think that's the biggest thing for me. And also that could also mean, my nephews, that same generational, like what did I do while I was on this planet to influence whatever I've left behind?
So let's be specific about it. What legacy do you want to leave behind? In other words, what do you want your kids to say about you 20 years after you're gone?
I think on an individual level, there'll be the lessons that I've taught them.
Okay.
Because when I am mindful and I am kind of like trying to be as the best version of dad that I can be, I really try to pour into them, and I find opportunities to be able to kind of coach them or teach them something. Those are the things I want to leave them with, impart that kind of wisdom, but the wisdom that's applied in a situation where they're going through a struggle. That's where I look at it as an opportunity to inject some knowledge and see that it's tangible. I'm not just on a pulpit preaching to them.
Right.
That was just going to go over their head. It's very situational that I pick my moments well. And I try to make sure that there's good eye contact. I don't do it when it's in a group setting. It's more of a one-on-one.
Right.
And I do it more now with my oldest because I think he's more, I guess, receptive to
cognizant.
Exactly. Because the 5-year-old's still in his own world. And I'm not even talking about the 2-year-old yet. Though that'll come.
Yeah, absolutely.
But I think that's like if I were taken from this earth right now, hopefully Gio, my oldest, will think back of all the stuff that I've taught him on overcoming challenges, or even in the opportunities where he's played sports and he feels down about his performance, or little things like that. That's what I hope to kind of leave behind.
I love that, and I think it's so important because it's like it's hyper focused, and you can't lose when you're doing that. You know what I'm saying? And I think, and I'm just kind of coming to this realization on this episode after interviewing, 190 guests now, which is awesome.
Yeah.
But
that's
I think
that's awesome.
Yeah. I think if you have that focus in your kids and the lessons that you leave them with, and you just focus on that, if by doing that and by being the example for them, you execute an even a legacy that impacts more, right?
Yeah.
I'm not going to say bigger because I don't think there's any bigger legacy than what you leave on your kids, but a legacy that's going to impact more people
Yeah.
as a side effect.
Uh-huh.
I think if you focus on them first, you can't lose. Versus a lot of people do. They focus on the legacy they're going to leave others first, and the kids is a side effect.
Yeah.
And that's where you can lose big time.
Definitely.
What does it matter if you're Steve Jobs if your daughter doesn't love you?
Exactly.
You know what I'm saying?
Great example.
And it's crazy how we're built that way too.
Yeah.
So I love it, brother. Thank you so much for coming on the show. I appreciate all the lessons you've given us here today, as well as a look inside the insurance space. And I think you're going to crush it now that you're able to offer multiple products.
I'm really excited. It's an exciting, scary time, especially in the insurance world of what's all happening right now. There's a lot of insurance carriers that are like exiting the space. So it's not the best time to go independent, but I'm not letting that slow me down.
No, and we're trained to do exactly that. Go the other way. 100%. All right, Kevin, let's get building.